Hey everyone, Undead Youth back again, finally with another video. I know it's been a while since I made my last guide. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I'm going through a huge transition in terms of equipment that I'm using, not only for WoW and gaming in general, but also specifically for creating videos and looking into streaming and things like that. So hopefully the audio will sound a lot better, a lot clearer, and most importantly won't have that weird whirring background noise because I won't actually be using the microphone on my laptop in order to record. So we'll see how that sounds. And also just because I want to try to stagger out my videos a little bit because my guides are kind of long, as you guys can tell, and so I don't like to saturate them too much because I don't feel like, if I put them too close together, they don't get a lot of views, so I tend to stagger them out a little bit, at least 2 to 3 weeks, but it's been like 2 months, so it's time to definitely put out another video. And I wanted to put out a video about the Holy Priest, which is a class that does not get talked about a lot in WoW at all, and especially not ever since the Discipline Priest became very prominent. And I will do a Discipline Priest guide, and it's probably the more popular one that people are going to look for, but I want people to take a look at this Holy Priest guide because I really do think that Holy is a lot more fun, and I manage to top meters with Holy all the time. Even though I'm not doing crazy content, it's surprisingly efficient. So I wanted to talk a bit about Holy. What is Holy and why should you play it? Obviously, Discipline Priest gets a lot of the recognition and also a lot of the flack for being one of the strongest specs in the game for healers currently, and also one of the more quote-unquote unfair because it doesn't seem like other people can keep up on the meters. However, I really like being a Holy Priest because your toolkit is so much bigger. You have the ability to actually heal people up, which is very important, especially when you start getting into higher and higher content where effective health is great and looks good on meters, but does not actually keep people alive, so to speak. And being able to heal people up through things like debuffs like Befouled and things on like Tyrant Valhari, or just like people taking massive amounts of damage like Shadowfell Burst. So I think that Holy is a lot of fun, and I like seeing all the pretty green numbers. So let's get into how I play it because I think I play Holy a little bit differently than a lot of other people do. So we'll talk about our talents first. Let's see. Alright, so for level 15, we're going to be going with Desperate Prayer. All these abilities have their place. Both Desperate Prayer and Angelic Bulwark are about the same. Angelic Bulwark is completely passive, so if you are new to the class, you might want to take that. Just note that we don't get as much use out of it as we do if we were a Discipline Priest, because it would then benefit from our Mastery. So I typically go with Desperate Prayer. Spectral Guise is also very good, though, because there are certain fixate mechanics that can be completely cheesed with Spectral Guise. So when you have those fights, Spectral Guise is the clear winner there. Moving on to level 30, there is kind of a split there. Basically, what Body and Soul does is it gives your Power Word Shield and Movement increase component. What Angelic Feather does is you get the chance to drop down feathers that when people run them over, they move faster. Phantasm is not really worth discussing for us. So it really just comes down between Angelic Feather and Body and Soul. Typically speaking, if you're running in a raid setup where you know you're going to be playing with another Disc Priest, Body and Soul is not what you want to take because of the fact that it is tied to Power Word Shield, and you want to have the Discipline Priest shielding people because their fat shields are always going to be more important than any healing increase that you can place on a target, and they might be and will probably be taking Power or Body and Soul as well. So it becomes redundant completely at that point in time for you to take it. And in general, having it tied to such an ability is not exactly. Sorry, somebody was messaging me. We have a new raid leader. Yay! I will respond to him momentarily. But yeah, so having your heals tied to, or your speed increase tied to such an ability that applies such a debuff that means you can't use it back to back, it's not necessarily the best thing to do when you get to have higher level content. So Angelic Feather is usually the choice for most Holy Priests, and it's a little hard to use at first and can be taken by the wrong target, but once you get used to it, it's pretty good. I personally take Body and Soul because I know my group does not run with a Discipline Priest for whatever reason, so I know that I'm going to be able to get use out of Body and Soul, but that's just me personally. I really want to reply to him right now because I don't want him to think like I'm totally ignoring him, but I don't want to start typing during the video, so we're going to leave that alone. Search of Light is my level 45 talent choice, but I really want to talk about this talent tier because it's some sort of mana conservation tier, right? something that gives you mana or makes your abilities free, which overall conserves you mana over the course of a fight. So you have Surge of Light, which I don't think a lot of people play with, but I typically love it. It basically gives all of your healing spells the opportunity to give you a charge of um, flash or a charge of Surge of Light, which makes your next flash heal instant and costs no mana. And you can store up to 2 of these charges at a time, which is really nice for healing people up very, very quickly. There's a huge emphasis on that in Hellfire Citadel. There are those debuffs that need to be healed through. They're just things that cut people's health down to like absolutely nothing, and they need to be healed up very, very quickly. And there's plenty of time to do that. And then there's also moments of large tank damage. It just feels like people get really, really low. And so, despite the very blankety play style of most healers, but especially priests, I really like Surge of Light for those moments in WoD that are very challenging for other healers. Surge of Light can actually help priests deal with that very, very well. Next, we have Mindbender, which basically just changes your Shadow Fiend into a version of itself that will give you back mana when it attacks. What's really cool about this is very, very simple. It probably requires the least amount of change to your playstyle. So if you are a beginner, I would probably recommend Mindbender. You just have to remember to throw it in every minute, which is not a hard thing to do. You can set up a Tell Me When for that, and it'll be very, very easy. 2, if you happen to play Shadow a lot, then you'll note that you're already going to have a fair amount of haste on your gear, and Mindbender becomes better with higher haste levels, so it might actually beat out the other 2 for pure mana conservation or return over the course of a fight. So definitely pick it, and also if you need DPS, then definitely pick it. And then finally, Power Word Solace, which replaces your Holy Fire. It sticks a dot on an enemy target and heals a nearby target for the damage done. Even if you're not a Discipline Priest, I believe, it still does that, which is pretty cool. And every time you cast it, you get 2% of your mana back. So a nice, even influx of mana over the course of a fight is very nice. Me personally, I just hate switching targets between I'm going to try to say allies and enemies. Excuse me, and especially because we do not gain the same buff or bonus of evangelism that Discipline Priests get from using this. This is usually their main source of stacking evangelism. We have no such buff. So personally, I tend to take Surge of Light. The reason why I really like Surge of Light is because it blends to the instant cast playstyle of the Holy Priest and really has a profound synergy with our level 100 talent that you almost have to take anyway, so I really like it. Level 60 does not matter for healing whatsoever. Pick whatever you want. Level 75 is another choice, and all of them are viable yet again, which is another thing I love about priests in general, is that especially for Holy, a lot of what you can do is pretty viable. I choose Twist of Fate. What Twist of Fate does is after you heal a target below 35% health, you deal 15% increased damage and healing for 10 seconds. What's really cool about this is that it has a lot of benefit for Holy Priest because our mastery actually places hots on everyone that we heal, and when those hots heal a target that comes below 35% health, then we also get Twist of Fate. I don't know if the same thing could be said for Lightwell, unfortunately. If so, great. That's awesome. That's even better. But I know that that works with not only Renew and the hot that comes from that, but also the hot that comes from our mastery, which is awesome. And you throw in some things like being able to surgically plant your Surge of Light's flash shields on people to heal them up to gain the power of Twist of Fate is really, really good. Then you have Power Infusion. Power Infusion is just a performance increasing cooldown, which gives you an extra 20% haste, or is it 25% haste for 20 seconds, and reduces the mana cost of your spells by 20%. It's not a mana conservation cooldown, which a lot of people think it is. Because it's really just meant to offset the fact that you're going to be casting a bunch of spells at that point in time. Typically speaking, though, like we're not a very slow cast time locked spec, but Power Infusion is just always going to be flat out good. There's never going to be a time where 25% extra haste goes to waste. Especially not if, hey, you're taking Mindbender, right? So that's really good. So you can see the synergy there. And then you have Divine Insight. Divine Insight doesn't really get a look in. It's pretty much between Twist of Fate and Power Infusion. I really like Twist of Fate because, one, the content that you're doing, when you get really, really high into the upper echelon of content like Mythic, everyone's below 35% health. Like I said, at the very least, you'd have those niche moments where people are dropping there because of mechanics that are just meant to cut their health almost down to nothing, and you're meant to heal them up very quickly. Twist of Fate works with that philosophy, as well as, you know, harder content, but also random groups where you have no fucking idea why somebody has stood in fire for 10 stacks of fire, right? And dropping a heal on them can actually just help the entire group up. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why I completely dominate healing meters, even as a holy priest in LFRs and things like that, is because people do stupid things, and just dropping a heal on them can drastically increase your performance, which is awesome. Oh, he went offline. I'm definitely gonna have to talk to him later. Sorry. So that's why I personally like Twisted Fate, but any one of these guys would be good and won't affect your playstyle overall too much. So if you like Power Infusion, go ahead and take it. But Twisted Fate is also completely passive, so if you're new to the class, I would probably suggest doing it as well. You can try to keep it in mind, try to make as much use of it as you can, but it's okay if you just kind of let it do its thing passively. Then you have some sort of additional AoE ability. You have either Cascade, which basically, it's really weird if you try to, if I were to read this tooltip to you and then you were to actually see Cascade, you'd be like, this guy lied to me. That's not what Cascade said it does. It's basically like a chain heal that just bounces to targets and heals them, and it has a set amount of bounces and can bounce at the same target up to twice, which I really like. Then you have Divine Star, which shoots a star at a target for that. Well, I'm sorry, it shoots a star in front of you, and then it comes back to you, healing everyone that it hits both ways. And then you have Halo, which just sends out a wave of energy that heals people. The farther they are away from you, the more effective the heal becomes, up to 25 yards. I personally don't like Halo at all because of that requirement of having to be really far away from people, which in Hellfire Citadel doesn't work. There's really like only one fight I can think of that might be like that, which is like Iron Reaver, maybe Manaroth. But other than that, for the most part, Hellfire Citadel keeps everyone very clumped together in a lot of fights and in a lot of phases. And I don't like having to be way off in BFE to get the most out of my healing spells, personally. Though it's not a bad spell. Cascade is very, very good, and I would say it's probably the easiest one of these abilities to use close to correctly. But at least from what I had experienced previously, Cascade has a tendency to bounce to pets, which I don't like. And I really, really like Divine Star and its synergy with Surge of Light. Now, it should be said that all of these abilities have the opportunity to give you Surge of Light procs, but I feel like none of them do it as efficiently and as smoothly and predictably as Divine Star does, because Divine Star has a lower cooldown than all the other abilities on this tree, only a 15-second cooldown, so it meshes again with the very instant cast nature of our spec. Also, it has the ability to give you hit massive amount of targets very, very quickly. Thing you need to understand about Cascade is that Cascade has a really long travel time, and Halo by default, if you're using it correctly, will have a very long travel time as well. So there's a very long time between you actually casting these abilities and then actually healing someone and potentially giving you a Surge of Light proc off of it. Whereas Divine Star is instant. It hits the people and it comes back to you, which is so great for generating a ton of Surge of Light charges, just very, very reliably. I can almost count on getting 2 Surge of Light charges almost the moment I cast Divine Star, whereas I have to be able to plan for that with Cascade, which, So that's why I like Divine Star, but again, any one of these guys are also very viable. Then we get to our level 100 talents. Now here, the viability thing changes, and you really only have one option, and it's Words of Mending, which is basically just gives you a buff that stacks on you every time that you cast a spell, a healing spell, that's called Words of Mending. And once you get to 10 stacks of Words of Mending, your next heal will apply Prayer Mending to your target. This is awesome. You can basically just think of it as a passive buff to your healing. We throw out a ton of instant cast spells. We're pretty much a turret for instant cast as a Holy Priest. Renews, Flash Heals with Surge of Light, Circle of Healing, Divine Star. Those are pretty much going to be like your bread and butter abilities, and those will give you very, very quick Words of Mending and stacks, and then they just start applying Prayer of Mending all the time, which is very effective. So that's why I like to make the most out of the instant cast sort of playstyle, and try to get the most kind of Words of Mending out as you possibly can. And I also really hate hard casting Prayer of Mending, so there you go. Prayer of Mending, it should be said, is not the end all be all, is not the spell it used to be, but when it's just free tacked on extra healing, it really is kind of hard to pass that up, right? Alright, so let's talk about our glyphs really quickly, because they'll also kind of affect our playstyle. Again, there's a lot of choice here and a lot of great viability here. but the ones that I've chosen to go with are this setup right here. Circle of Healing. Your Circle of Healing will heal one additional target, but its mana cost is increased by 35%. Circle of Healing is your absolute bread and butter healing spell. It does the most healing out of anything over the course of a fight. You want to buff it as much as you possibly can. The only time you don't want to take this glyph is if you're in a 5-man, because that extra target is completely useless. But in a raid, you always want to have this glyph, in my personal opinion, unless you are super hardcore single target tank healing, in which case you are probably disc anyway. Let's be honest. I have Glyph of Angels because I look awesome when I use it. And then Glyph of Deep Wells increases the total amount of charges of your light well by 2, which is just awesome. Your light well does a ton of healing, completely free, and completely cooldownless. Like, you don't even have to waste the global cooldown on light well. It just does what it does passively, and that's so good. It's just awesome. So giving it even more stuff to do is very cool. And then you have Glyph of Renew. Your Renew heals for 25% more each time it heals, but its duration is reduced by 3 seconds. Or its duration is reduced. Did I say that? Yeah. Its duration is reduced by 3 seconds. This is okay. This is okay whether you're playing in the single target chakra state or the AoE chakra state. If you're playing single target, you're going to be refreshing Renew anyway, so it's not a problem because you don't have to hard cast it to reapply it when its duration runs out. And then if you're AoE healing, it doesn't matter anyway because you're just going to be spamming Renews on everyone as a part of your playstyle. And the more times you cast Renew, the more prayers of mending you get, which if you're in your AoE chakra, that should be what you should be after anyway. More prayers of mending, more AoE healing. So that's okay too. Honorable mentions, though, go out to Binding Heal, which makes your Binding Heal heal another target, which makes it an incredibly efficient heal, as long as you're very, very good at using it, making sure that you're not close to full health, the target's not close to full health, and somebody else, yeah. So it can lead to some overhealing, but it's super efficient when it works, and I love it a lot in 5-mans, especially where you're in your single target chakra state a little bit more. Binding Heal can be a nice AoE heal along with Circle of Healing. Fade, which adds a 10% damage reduction component to Fade, which basically turns it into a minor damage reduction cooldown for when the raid calls for those. It's very good because priests don't have a lot of those anyway, so that's awesome. Holy Fire is important if you take Power Word Solace, but I'm not taking that, so I'm not going to take it, but it basically just means that you can solace things from farther away. And there was one more, I think. Weaken Soul. If you happen to shield yourself a lot, like you're not running with it, this priest, it reduces the cooldown, or the Weaken Soul's debuff, which is strong. Or you can take Glyph of Power Word Shield, which turns Power Word Shield into an instant cast heal, which, again, if you're not running with a Discipline Priest, it can be pretty effective because it kind of lends to the whole healing style that we're going over. That was my dog chasing my cat, by the way, and I think I'm going to kill both of them in a second, but it's alright. I'm gonna not do that while I'm on camera. Alright, so let's talk a bit about how to actually play this guy, right? So if you guys don't know, first thing that you really need to know about Holy Priest is that we have 2 chakra states, and chakra states are represented by these little circles right here that are indicative to healing. We have chakra state Sanctuary and chakra state Serenity. While I'm in Chakra State Serenity, my abilities change. Most notably, my chakra, or my Holy Word Chastise, becomes Holy Word Serenity, and it goes from being a DPS ability to a healing ability. And this healing ability is just a massive single target heal, but this heal also increases my critical strike chance on the target for a small time, so it applies a buff to them. But the thing that you really need to know about yourself in Serenity is that every time you cast a direct healing spell, whether that be Holy Word Serenity, whether it be Heal, Flash Heal, I believe Binding Heal also counts, all of those abilities, when they're cast on a target that has Renew on them, your Renew will instantly be refreshed. This is great because Renew is another one of your huge healing abilities over the course of a fight. And if you can save the mana and the time that it takes to cast Renew over and over and over again, that's only going to make you more efficient healer in so many ways, both saving time and saving mana. That's by far the most efficient thing you can do. So you're typically going to be using this chakra state in single target healing. So like 5-mans, or if you're in charge of tank healing, or maybe like healing a rogue that's soaking something or something like that, this is going to be your chakra state. The reason why is because you can keep Renew up on your target and it's going to be healing for a shit ton, and then keep it refreshed using your Holy Word Serenity on cooldown. If you just simply use Holy Word Serenity on cooldown, you'll have exactly what you need to keep up Renew without ever having to cast Renew again, and without having to wait to cast Heal, which is going to, again, play into the overall instant cast heavy playstyle that we have, so you're going to get plenty of Words of Mending stacks building up. And that's basically it. Other than that, you're pretty much going to be using Circle of Healing when people start taking a little bit more damage, Divine Star on cooldown, and using your Flash of Light, Surge, or Flash Heal, Surge of Light whenever you can, to either refresh your Renew, or just to make sure that you don't cap those charges any more than you have to. After that, you're going to be using Bind to Heal anytime that you yourself is taking damage and other people are taking damage. So pretty simple, but it's kind of a mechanic that has been used before in other classes like Druids as well, with kind of Life Bloom being refreshed by single target heals. So nothing crazy there. Then you have your AoE chakra state, which is Holy Word, which is Chakra State Serenity. And so in this chakra state, your Holy Word Chastise actually becomes Holy Word Sanctuary. And what this does is it places an AoE healing circle down on the ground that heals for like pretty much nothing. Okay. Now, then when I say pretty much nothing, it doesn't heal for nearly as much as like Healing Rain for a Shaman, or a Fluorescence for a Druid, and it costs a pretty decent amount of mana. So you're only going to use this ability when you have enough people in it to make it worth casting, okay? That's one thing we need to note there. Also, in this chakra state, more importantly, every time you cast a healing spell, it actually reduces the cooldown on Circle of Healing. And this is tremendous, because we talked about how important Circle of Healing is. Even if we're in single target, we're going to use Circle of Healing. But if we can reduce the cooldown by even a second, that's awesome. So the name of the game when you're in your AoE chakra is to basically use as many instant casts as you can. One, because that's going to give you tons of Words of Mending, and two, because that's going to reduce the cooldown of your Circle of Healing as much as possible. You want to stray away from hard casting abilities like Prayer of Mending and Circle of Healing if you can, though they do have their place. But typically speaking, you're going to Circle of Healing on cooldown. You're going to renew as many people as you possibly can before Circle of Healing comes off of cooldown. You're going to Divine Star off of cooldown. You're going to use your Surge of Light stacks if and when and where you can. You're only going to use Sanctuary when you have enough people standing in it to make it effective. Now, it's very important. Let's talk about Prayer Mending. You should be using Prayer Mending whenever you have the opportunity to, typically before the pull or error points during downtime, where you wouldn't be better off using a single target ability to reduce the duration or reduce the cooldown on Circle of Healing. Also, very important to note that your Prayer of Healing is actually affected by a little passive that we have called Serendipity, which we'll pull that up here. Serendipity, whenever you Binding Heal or Flash Heal, the cast time of your next Prayer of Healing is reduced by 20%, and its mana cost is reduced by 20%, and it stacks up to twice. So this is obviously incredibly synergistic with Surge of Light, right? If we get 2 Surge of Light stacks, we use them. We have 2 Serendipity stacks, and we can use those. So try not to cast Prayer of Healing without at least 1 Serendipity stack, but preferably without 2. Because it really is a very slow spell and doesn't heal for a lot. So at the very least, we want it to be faster, and we don't want it to cost us as much, but at the end of the day, it's like we would still rather use instant cast abilities that reduce the cooldown on our Circle of Healing, so it kind of just mitigates that sort of loss, I guess. But it does have its place, and in organized groups even more so, because you can control which groups are going to be taking what damage or soaking what mechanic, and that was really where Prayer of Healing does shine. Okay, let's talk a bit about our other abilities, like our cooldowns and our utility abilities. We have a lot of really powerful cooldowns. The first one is Guardian Spirit, which just puts a spirit over top of a target that increases the healing they receive by 60% and prevents them from dying. It actually will heal the target by 40% of the maximum health if it's active while the target was supposed to die. This is incredible. It's like a lay on hands, but it's like the target just cannot die while it's active, as opposed to having to have the target be alive and lay on hands them. and it increases their the healing done to them by 60%. So like if you're playing with a DK or Druid, they can pretty much heal themselves back up to full, even if you can't, which is really cool. Because again, you'll kind of notice that there's a thing with Holy Priest, and they do give healing increases, but not just to themselves, but also to others, which is incredibly important, not for healing meters, but for surviving encounters. We already talked about Desperate Prayer. Fade should be used when you have aggro. If you have taken the glyph, you're going to use it before you take big damage, like AoE damage. Then you have Lightwell. Lightwell is another big iconic holy cooldown. You're just going to set this down at the start of a fight, and it's going to do all of its benefits. Passively, it's just going to heal people that are below 50% health with its own version of Renew, which is really cool. And then you have Divine Hymn, which is a channeled ability. Much like Tranquility, you must be stood still the entire time to use it. Doesn't heal for a little, quite as much, but it does increase healing done afterwards, which is really, really cool. And that's not just your healing, that's other people's healing. You still have the ability to smite, and it should also be noted that you still have the ability to do damage in your chakra state, Chastise. But that's the only state you should ever be doing damage in. You should never cast smite outside of Chastise because it won't be free. The only damaging ability you should ever cast when you're not in chakra state Chastise is Power Word Solace if you've taken that talent. You have Power Word Shield, which again, if you're not running with the Discipline Priest, is a very viable spell to cast on cooldown on the tank or during a fight. And of course, if you're taking Body and Soul, you definitely want to be making ample use of that. Finally, you have Purify, which obviously dispels one harmful magical debuff. And then you have Mass Dispel, which does the same thing, but in an area of effect on the ground, which is an incredibly useful ability, but drains your mana like no one's business. Then let's wrap up talking about the Disc Priest by talking about stat priority, glyphing, gemming, and enchanting. Very simple. Multi-strike, 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 multi-strike. I cannot stress that enough. There's no other more important stat than multi-strike for a Holy Priest. Why, you might ask? Well, let's take a look at it. This is actually due to a passive that we have that is called... Where is it? Divine Providence. We gain 5% more multi-strike stat from all sources, and it also increases the healing and absorption of our multi-strikes by 20%. This is tremendous, alright? So all of our multi-strikes have a chance to, or will actually heal for more than other classes' multi-strikes. This is important because you have to think that everything has a chance to multi-strike. Like, literally everything has a chance to multi-strike. So those renews we're putting out on people, every tick has an opportunity to multi-strike. Basically making it as powerful as a normal tick of renew. Not only that, you have your own mastery, which basically places a hot, like we talked about, places a hot on every person that you heal with your spells. Those also have a chance to multi-strike. Your heals themselves have a chance to multi-strike, which means that you have a chance to potentially get more stacks of Surge of Light. So multi-strike is incredibly important for the fluidity of your playstyle, but also just for your raw HPS output. So stack as much multi-strike as you can. Other than that, your stats are very, very close together, and you can pick roughly whatever you want. Just make sure that you're going multi-strike if and whenever it is possible. Okay? This was one of my shorter guides, so I will cut it off here to try to save you guys a little bit of time. I want to thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for hanging in there for me through this kind of a lull period. I promise there are going to be tons of videos coming out very, very soon explaining everything about why I was away, but I thank you so, so much for watching my videos, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good day.